Hey there guys, Alex here from SBP, and today I'm joined by my colleague Dayan,
Hey everyone.
as well as our guest Nick from Icepick for this case study.
Hey guys.
Alright, Nick, I just want to get started with asking you, what was the first aha moment that you had that made you want to start Icepick back in 2015?
Yeah, so good question. So I got my start working at a bunch of different agencies. So I noticed that there was a gap between kind of what clients needed and what they were getting. So I wanted to create a more personal, transparent approach to specifically web design at the time. And so I decided to take the leap into freelancing. And that was challenging, obviously, for the first couple of years. But after, I'd say about a year and a half, 2 years, definitely started to see my vision take shape. And so I would say it wasn't just me going independent was my aha moment, but it was actually building something that I feel it delivered something that I felt was missing in the industry.
Awesome. Just to pick up on that, no pun intended, but you said you were a freelancer before, right? So in 2015, did you start this, what even today is like this one person agency, or did you partner up with like multiple freelancers? How did it go?
Yeah, so I started off by myself, which was challenging, and so my background's obviously in development. So I just did everything for basically the first year. I did absolutely everything, which was overwhelming. But that's when I started to realize I needed to build systems and scale.
And in 2015, did you just do design back then, or also local SEO, or?
No, so when we started, it was just web design and development, actually.
And what was like the web development in 2015? Because this is 10 years ago. It sounds like it was yesterday, but it's really a long time ago. I'm very curious what it was back then.
Yeah, a lot of Drupal work. Still was doing WordPress related work. I would say probably those were the two biggest platforms that we were using at the time. There was some other CMSs at the time that were slowly taking off, but we really leaned into WordPress at the time.
Yeah, speaking of WordPress, there are still a lot of agencies that do this unlimited tasks kind of service. So you have, I don't know, let's say 10 hours a month or 20 hours a month, and then you can get the jobs done. But what was it in 2015? Like, what did it look like?
Mostly just project based. A lot hasn't, I would say it has changed a lot in some ways, but it hasn't in other ways, at least from that regard. Our pricing has basically, it's obviously went up since then, but the way that we charge and the way that we work hasn't really changed too much. So yeah, mostly project by project is how we've been charging.
Alright, that makes sense, Nick, thank you. I just wanted to ask, I am curious on my end about the name Icepick. It's very distinctive for web design and SEO agency. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so when I kind of went off on my own, I was trying to, obviously needed to come up with a name, didn't want to just go by my personal name. So I was sitting in my office trying to think of a unique name that one people would remember and be like, oh, that's interesting, but also kind of play into what we do. So I ended up landing on Icepick just because I kind of felt like we were going to be chipping away at websites and kind of like methodically breaking through barriers to help businesses stand out online. So yeah, I don't know why that popped into my head, but that was the first thing that hit, and that's what I ended up sticking with.
Sounds good. I mean, it's a very memorable name, so that's pretty cool. Did you have any issues with the domain? I see you have a .co domain, so apparently .com was already taken, right?
That is correct. .com is taken. It's a very interesting website if you ever wanted to check it out. But yeah, couldn't get the .com. Tried, so I ended up landing on .co, which is what we still have today.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's worth investing too much in a .com domain these days. I mean, it's nice, but if it costs you a few hundreds of thousands, maybe you just stick to the CO domain, right?
Agreed. Yep.
Awesome. So for my next question, take us back to your first year in business. What was like the biggest win you had once you were an established agency, and what was your most humbling moment?
Yeah, so I would say that my biggest win was definitely landing my first major client, which, believe it or not, was through Craigslist at the time. It was a law firm out of Dallas, and they're actually still with us today, 10 years later. So that relationship really taught me that building genuine partnerships rather than just treating things as transactions is super important. And there was a lot of humbling moments, but I think probably the biggest one was just realizing the sheer number of hats that I had to wear. Going from just being a front end developer, I now had to be a salesperson, a accountant, customer service. That was very overwhelming, but it has also shaped how we've grown throughout the years. Yeah, we really focus on creating quality partnerships over just volume.
Awesome. And then after the first year, when did you start hiring? Like you mentioned you were alone for a while. When did you have your first hire for your agency?
Yeah, so I probably waited too long. I was doing all of the work. So I was still doing all of the development work while also simultaneously doing all the business development, accounting. So the first hire I would say was in year 2, probably. And that's when I actually started delegating the development side of the business. And actually my first hire was actually my brother, who at the time had just graduated college. He's way smarter than me, and he didn't know what he wanted to do. So he shadowed me basically for, I think it was 4 to 6 months, basically learned how to do everything I learned how to do in 2 years. And he ended up taking the reins and doing all of the development work so that I could focus on project management and actually trying to get more clients in the door.
That's amazing, actually. It's like a very cool type of family business where it's actually very beneficial, right?
Yep, exactly.
Love it. All right. Well, you mentioned that many clients come to you after disappointing experiences with other agencies. Now, what do you think is the biggest disconnect in how most agencies approach SEO, and how did you make it better?
So I think agencies tend to overpromise and underdeliver. So I think it's really important to set realistic expectations up front. Something I saw is that a lot of agencies will just collect a check and not do a lot of actual work. And so I kind of built Icepick on the opposite principle. So being very transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the ultimate goal is for it. Trying to define clear timelines, regularly reporting, and letting them know, this is what we're seeing, and this is the impact that it's having. So I would say that that's probably the biggest disconnect that I see within at least the SEO industry is just a lack of transparency.
Yeah, I see this also all over LinkedIn right now. Like a lot of people complain that SEO agencies do reporting, but in a really bad way. Like it's just like a bunch of graphs. This is a bunch of views you get. This is a bunch of clicks you get. But what does that actually mean? So how do you do the reporting that it actually makes sense for people, especially if they don't know anything about SEO?
Yeah, so we jump on calls with people every month to kind of explain the reports, and we're really focused on the things that are moving the needle. So, tracking calls, form submissions, and then trying to tie that back to actually ROI, like how many of those leads did you actually close? What was the value of those leads? And then we, simple math. Are you making money off of your investment?
Sounds good. So based on what you're saying, it sounds like you're still very much hands-on, like even for maybe productized agency, which is more like it has cool concepts in place behind the scenes, but you still do some hands-on stuff.
I am very involved. Yeah, that is true. But that's by choice. Also, I am a perfectionist and have a hard time letting go, which that's been a challenge in the agency. But I want to make sure that there is the quality of the work is being retained. And I also enjoy it. I enjoy what we do. And so I'm more than happy to be involved. And so, yeah, I do take a lot of the calls, especially in the beginning, before handing them off to the team, and then doing constant check-ins with each client just to make sure that things are going the right way and everybody's happy with the work that's being done.
Awesome. Before we move on to the next question, because it ties a little bit into it, how do you do the calls? Is it like an introduction call? Or do you just want to vet your leads so you make sure that they're actually a good fit for your agency?
Usually we'll do a discovery call first to see what they're needing, just to make sure that we're actually a good fit. We are pretty focused on local SEO, so we have a lot of people that come to us that are in e-com or SaaS. And a lot of those people we just end up turning away just because we're not the best fit. So yeah, we do a pretty extensive discovery call just to make sure that we can actually help them. We do keyword research up front before ever even starting, just to kind of gauge expectations and make sure they understand, this is what it's going to take to get to where you want to be. So I feel like that's a really, really important step that a lot of people miss.
I feel like you actually put a lot of effort into making sure that the promises that you're making to your clients are actually being delivered. So you're putting so much effort into this discovery call, you're putting an effort into being very transparent and clear about what you're providing your clients, which I think is probably one of the reasons why you're doing so well, because you're building these good relationships based on good faith and transparency.
100%. Yeah, that is the most important thing. And I think that's probably just where I came from, just being in the agency world. I was seeing a lot of things that I would consider unethical. And so I wanted to change that. And I really do. I mean, the main reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because I want to help small businesses succeed. And so I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that is the case. And I'm going to be very transparent about if I think I can help you or not.
Brilliant. Now, to my next question, can you tell me what has been your greatest challenge in scaling a service-based business while you keep the quality you've been known for?
That has probably been the biggest challenge. So we're scaling very deliberately and very slowly, but that's on purpose because the quality has to be retained. I don't want to scale and sacrifice quality. It just doesn't make sense, and it's going against the reason I started the agency to begin with. I'd say the biggest challenge is just finding quality team members that you could trust, that are committed to, the excellence that I'm trying to achieve for each client. So, having good attention to detail, being able to communicate properly. That has probably been the biggest challenge. For every one person that we hire, I've went through usually 15 to 20 people. So finding quality people that can actually do the work that I trust has definitely been the biggest challenge.
And then when you hire people, do you hire them full time, or do you also work with freelancers who are like more project based or hourly based?
Yeah, so most people that we're working with are just contractors all around the world, actually. Some of them are on an hourly basis. And then some of them are on just a fixed salary every month.
Yeah, so how do you find the people you work with? Are you using job boards, or are you going on Upwork and then just work with them through the platforms?
Yeah, so it's a variety of different avenues, actually. So we've actually hired 2 people, which were just referrals from the existing team. So people on our team knew other people, which was really nice because they had a previous working relationship with them. So that was pretty lucky, and they're very talented people. Twitter or X is a really big one. LinkedIn. I have used Upwork in the past. Onlinejobs.ph is a really good one. And then there's some headhunting companies that are pretty good as well. Sagan Passport is a solid one. So yeah, I mean, just a variety of different ways. We just try and get as many candidates as we possibly can in through the door, and then just go through a interview process with each of them and then make a decision.
Awesome. I'm very curious what the interview process looks like, because I also hired someone in our team for link building, and we used obviously SPP, basically the contact form. So I made like a little questionnaire with like questions, and that basically weeded out like 80% of the people straight off the bat because they failed the little test that I built for them.
Yeah, I think that's very important. So the way that I've been doing it is I will have first just a discovery call with them, just kind of picking their brain on experience, just seeing how they can communicate, just to see if that part's a good fit, which weeds out a pretty good amount of them. And then after that, we give them a test project, a paid test project, if I think they're going to be a good fit. So we ask them to, do on-page recommendations for a specific website. And then we also do like a technical audit. So we have websites that we know there are issues, we know what the issues are, and we want to see if they can find them. And if they do, that's typically a pretty good sign.
That's a pretty cool vetting process. I like that. I like that, especially that you said that you do a paid test as well. Because I usually get really frustrated when I see people asking or having these positions and things where they don't pay their interns or stuff like that. So I definitely appreciate that. I think that's pretty cool. But simultaneously on that, if we could be like, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but if we could be a fly on the wall when your team starts a new client project, what would we see that would make your approach different in handling these clients?
Yeah, so I would say that I am transparent almost to a fault. Just very honest with what our approach is. If we can help you, if we can't help you, we try to educate clients on exactly what we're doing and why. SEO happens to be, to a lot of people, this big black box that nobody really understands and they don't know what they're getting. So we try to break that barrier by educating the people that we're going to be working with. So walking them through the entire strategy, explaining the technical side of SEO, why we do it, the content side, link building. So we really walk them through every single part of the process so they understand how much work is actually going into what we're doing every single month. So I think you would be probably surprised at the amount of information that we give on those initial calls.
And after the calls, can you give us like a quick overview what your project management looks like in SPP? Let's say they go through the call, they sign up, they go through the order form and pay. What happens next?
Yeah, no, exactly. So SPP has been a massive help for us because obviously the onboarding's all through SPP. So they sign up through SPP. There's an onboarding form that they go through that gives us everything that we need from an access standpoint. My project manager is in SPP every single day looking at those orders coming through. He then essentially takes that information, creates a Asana project internally, and then we have a Google Sheet for everything related to that client. So we've got like an SEO master sheet is what we call it. And so everything is internally handled through Asana, and then everything from client facing is handled through SPP, which has been incredible for us. The amount of transparency that they get, because we're obviously giving them updates through SPP within that order bi-weekly. So people have let us know that they love that process, and it's really what has allowed us to scale as much as we have. I think being extremely organized, I don't think we'd be able to do it, to be honest, if we didn't have SPP.
Yeah. So Nick, tell me, before you've used SPP, have you tried building like your own portal, or have you used anything else?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So since we predominantly build on WordPress, we did actually try a plugin on WordPress first. So there's a client portal plugin on WordPress, which is what we were going to try to use. There was some issues with that. It didn't have the payment stuff that we really wanted built into it. So we ended up trying to look for other third parties. So I think the first one we tried was Mini Requests. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it didn't work for us. The UI or something was confusing about it. And I remember a buddy of mine actually sent SPP over, signed up. The onboarding was incredibly easy. Didn't really have any questions, didn't feel lost, and I dove right into it, and I've kind of fallen in love with it ever since.
Awesome. And do you have any automations running, or how does it work? Like anything, like if a client replies or sends some kind of file, is there any automation going on to send it to Asana or to the Google Sheet, for example?
Currently, no. That's definitely something that we've been looking into. Right now, I just have our project manager looking at everything and then manually moving things to Asana. That is something that we're definitely going to be doing, but not yet.
All right. Well, I mean, I was gonna say when Dan asked before Dan asked the question, I was gonna say that maybe it would make sense to do some automations with Zapier because you said that you're manually creating these projects in Asana. If you use Zapier, you could literally push all the information, create the project automatically, so that might work better down the road.
100%. Yeah. I'm now in the process. It's funny that we bring this up because I'm now in the process of basically automating everything from that process standpoint with SPP, but also internally with our own SOPs for our SEO process. I'm in the process of building an SEO assistant essentially that helps the internal team with blog writing, on page optimizations. So we're trying to get more efficient using AI and automations. So that's what I'm really focused on right now.
Brilliant. Do you have any idea what you could automate? Like, are you a Zapier fan, or do you like more Make.com, for example, for automations?
Yeah, I've used both. I'm currently using Zapier just because I had an account and I'm using it for something else right now. So a lot of Zapier. I've been messing a lot with Lindy.ai. If you guys have any experience with that, that's been really, really cool. I've got a really cool one that's working right now where 30 minutes before every meeting, I get a Slack message on what the meeting is going to be about, who the people in the meeting are, gives me their LinkedIn, just to kind of prep me for every call, which has been super helpful just because with the amount of calls that I'm doing, I have to go back through the email chain, trying to, kind of remind myself what was being talked about. That automation basically fixes the entire thing. So it does save me a ton of time.
Amazing. Yeah, I actually found out about Lindy like 2 days ago on LinkedIn, and I had a quick look at it. So you can build like your own AI agent basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you could plug in, it's very similar to Zapier in the sense that it has that workflow, but it has more. It's got Perplexity built into it. And it's got a lot of really cool templates, like right out of the box that you could use that are super helpful. I've got one because I was just thinking of different ideas of what I could potentially do. I've got one that runs that every week it tells me concerts that are coming into Dallas because I'm constantly missing concerts that I want to go to. So I now get an email every Monday that tells me here are the bands that are coming into town based on the genres that you like.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'm going to look into Lindy a little bit more. Maybe there's some use case for SPP. Most of our agencies, they use Zapier, but also Make.com. Spoiler, we're going to eventually make the Make.com app live, so maybe you can check it out and build some automations with it. It should be very helpful because it has better limits on the free plan in Zapier. Like, you're going to run out pretty quickly on Zapier, so...
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I was looking at your portfolio, and I saw that you've worked with some clients like Kojima Productions, and I thought that was super cool. But you also work with other clients like AMC Insurance, so I was wondering, how do you adapt your approach when switching between different industries like that, because they're completely different?
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging. So each of them obviously requires a very unique approach. So usually the process starts with like a very immersive discovery session. With the client, diving into their industry, the competitors, the audience. And so from that point, we typically create like a custom project roadmap that accounts for, the specific industry challenges that we might run into. But it's a very, very collaborative approach. So, for example, that the EMC insurance one, they've got an entire, internal team. And that's a very heavily regulated industry. So we had to make sure that we were leaning on them for a lot of the things that we were doing. So that was essentially a full, UI, UX redesign of the entire site. Kojima was an awesome project. Very happy we were able to work on that. That was a custom Shopify project for e-commerce. So with specifically North America, but that was a really fun project. And that was actually, believe it or not, just a lead that came in through a contact form one day. And I was like, that can't be real, but it was. And yeah, super happy that we were able to work with them on that.
Yeah, but I still wanted to follow up on the Kojima Productions questions. How did you handle like such a big client? I mean, maybe not everyone knows, but Kojima Productions is like a really big company. Like, the guy is known all over the world. So did you talk to him personally? Was it some assistant? Did you have any nice white glove service? How did it go?
Unfortunately, it wasn't directly with him. It was the North America team that I was in contact with, specifically the one that handled their all of their merchandise. So we were working with the team in Japan for design direction. So there was a couple nights that we had to hop on calls with their design team, just so that we were making sure that we, matched all the brand guidelines. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience, and I'm glad we got to work on that project. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Awesome. Let's go to the next question. You mentioned reporting and measuring success for your clients, that it's very important in general. Can you just walk us through the steps? Like, what kind of metrics do you measure and why do you do that?
Yeah, so we're using agency analytics for our reporting, which is super helpful. Another great tool. But we track multiple metrics just to get a complete picture of the progress. So SEO is, typically slow. Usually takes, 3 to 6 months for us to actually start seeing some progress on average. So we're looking at things like the organic traffic growth. Are we picking up new keywords, referring domains? But also the most important, obviously, is conversions through calls and form submissions. So we're using a tool called What Converts that actually plugs into agency analytics to track those. And that we are using to try and obviously tie ROI to the work that we're doing. So monthly, we jump on a call with clients to kind of go over those reports. But every 2 weeks, we also give them an update on what we're seeing. But the custom reporting dashboard has been incredibly helpful. And we also have automated reports that are going out to clients every month as well.
Awesome. Are you like embedding any of the reports inside SPP and then they log in and check them out? Or is it just you just send them a link inside the order thread?
We send them a link within the order thread. Yeah, I did see that SPP has an agency analytics integration. Haven't messed with it yet. So right now we're just sending them like the public link within the order with a text update too. We're giving them, because a lot of, like you were saying earlier, a lot of businesses don't know what they're looking at with these reports. So when we send that order update, it's translated so that they'll really understand what they're looking at. A lot of people don't even look at them, to be honest. They're mostly just looking at our text updates for the most part. At least that's what I found.
Okay. I mean, if it works for them, that's cool. Speaking of that, do you know how your clients are using the portal? Are some of them logging in, or do they usually reply via email and then it just gets posted into the thread?
It's definitely a mix between both. I've noticed, I'd probably say it's 50-50. Some people just respond to the emails, but I have noticed that people actually log in to the account to respond as well. So I would say it's probably a 50-50 split.
That's very cool. I think your clients are then very open to using new tools, because when I talk to agencies, they're always like, yeah, it's like maybe 80% will not log in and 20% will log in because they're either very busy, they don't want to save the passwords or click the magic login or something. So I'm actually surprised it's 50-50.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a good point. But yeah, I don't know. I've noticed people are logging in and because I could see it in their messages. So yeah, it is interesting.
I wanted to add or ask a question on top of something that you said earlier. So you mentioned that you used to be a front-end developer. You did a bunch of coding in the past. So I was wondering how that influenced your leadership style, and how does that also influence the values that you have?
Yeah, for sure. So having been in the trenches as a front-end developer, I lead from a place of understanding what it's like to actually do the work. So I think that experience has definitely shaped how I structure projects and making sure that the team actually gets what they need, because there was a lot of projects where I was pretty lost just because I didn't have the information that I needed to actually do it. So I try to make sure they have everything they need. We have realistic timelines put in place. I'm not trying to rush the team to do anything. I want to make sure that they have the tools and the resources, obviously, to do their best work, and just have very clear processes over, this is how we build websites. This is what we need to do every single time, and just have a very clear, SOP for everything that we're doing.
I actually think that it is pretty cool that you did this like yourself in the past, because now you're setting all of these reasonable expectations. Because usually when people hire developers of any kind, they always have these like crazy expectations, and they expect them to do things super quick, they expect them to do them super cheap, and it doesn't really make much sense. So the fact that you have this experience and you're able to give your team realistic expectations, I'm sure everyone on your team loves that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know how long things take, so I'm trying not to rush anybody.
Yeah, that's, I think, a good way to go on about it. Also, you don't want the quality to suffer, right? Because then your clients are going to be unhappy, which doesn't really help you if you lose clients.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. So for our last question, for all the productized agency owners that are watching, can you tell me what have you been struggling with the most when scaling systems and process, and give them a tip so they don't go through the same thing if they start their own agency?
Yeah. So I waited to delegate for too long, probably just because of my micromanaging and perfectionism. But I would say develop a detailed SOP as soon as you can, and trust your team to actually execute, and use SPP as well. When I first was starting to scale Icepick, I noticed I was the bottleneck for everything. And I just had to let go. So now, having having SOPs in place to make sure that, every person knows exactly what they need to do, and being able to delegate to that person is such a great feeling. Once you finally have it and you're like, okay, I don't have to look at everything that person's doing anymore. They've got the SOP down. Yeah, that's everything I would probably say. And to not sacrifice quality while scaling.
I'm actually curious about one thing, because you mentioned a few times that you micromanage and you're very much a perfectionist and all that. What was the turning point that made you realize that you might be the bottleneck and now something needs to change?
Well, I was working 12 hours a day, and I realized I only had so many hours in a day to actually do work. And I was like, okay, something's got to change. It was very, very difficult for me to do that because I thought I was the only one that could do a lot of these things. And it was hard for me to trust other people. Especially, I was kind of an elitist in that way, where I was like, I want to build websites this way. And training other people to do it that way was proving difficult. So I got to a point where I was working so much, and I had so much stress that I didn't have another choice. And so I ended up, first it was bringing my brother in, which was incredibly helpful. Then it was bringing in a second developer who, essentially shadowed him. And then, 4 more after that. And then we started doing the SEO stuff. I did the exact same thing. I found, essentially my lead guy who I really trusted, who's really good. And now he's this, the senior SEO that oversees everybody else. So now I'm basically completely out of the fulfillment process of the business. And I'm only focused on high level, getting people in the door, getting more clients, making sure each project's, going well, and essentially just doing check-ins at this point.
Very cool. Yeah, I think listening to you, because I was also a freelancer once, it's the mindset of a freelancer and also a perfectionist that is very tricky if you want to switch to the agency model, because you cannot work alone. You need to trust people, you need to delegate, and that probably requires a switch that takes a little while to get going.
100%. Yeah, that switch took a little too long for me.
Well, it's good. You managed in the end, and we're very happy to have you on board. And your clients apparently are even happier, because if they work with you for over 10 years, that's an amazing achievement.
Nick, I want to thank you so much for your time today to answer these questions. It was really nice having you over in the case study. The information that you've provided was invaluable. So again, thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.